Do I start now or?
I think I'm recording it. I'll just do a brief intro. And
Okay, gotcha.
okay, yeah. So hello and selamat datang, everybody. Welcome. I've got a special guest tonight. So this is Edward Leon Guerrero from Guam, who will give us a brief sort of insight into his life and his passion for the CHamoru language, which is the native language of Guam. So Edward, yeah, the floor is yours. Go ahead.
Hey, Seduce Masi, thank you very much, Brian, for inviting me to your show. And for those listening, yes, he introduced me. I'm Edward Leon Guerrero. I'm from the island of Guam, which is the southernmost island in the Marianas island chain. And if you don't know where Guam is, it's how would you say? It's east of the Philippines and north of New Guinea. So at those sequence, 144 around 14, the longitude and latitude. And so the one thing about the CHamoru language, which is the indigenous language in the Marianas, is that the fact is that today very little young people know the language. I did a survey on this, and this also collaborates with other studies. So that is less than 5% of Chamorros less than 31 years old can hold a conversation in the CHamoru language. Not fluently speak, but could hold a conversation, less than 5%. So the Chamorro language is very, very endangered and could potentially be lost within the next 2 generations or so. And you might be wondering, well, how is that? And the one thing about Guam, which is a very, how would I say, it's due to the political situation of Guam. Guam is one of 17 non-self-governing territories on the list of UN non-self-governing territories. So what that means is that while colonies, after World War II, while much of the world decolonized, such as Indonesia from the Dutch and all those other places, Guam still remains a colony. And the United States' policies of language suppression, which happened during the 40s, the 30s, ever since they arrived here in 1899 after the Spanish-American War, the United States has been pressuring the, how would I say it, to discourage the speaking of CHamoru for about, I would say, up until the 1970s. There were policies against speaking Chamorro, and there were policies to make the Chamorro people, the native inhabitants, assimilate into the dominant English-speaking and so-called more civilized Anglo-Saxon values. So one of my goals is to help revitalize the language, because I believe that language is a very important part of any group's culture, and it's a unique expression and contains, it's sort of like a how would you say, it's like a lockbox, which contains the different expressions and understandings unique to that people and to that culture. And that is also why language revitalization, which is what I'm all about, is also tied in with politics, which deals with decolonization. I am with a group that desires to help Guam decolonize from the United States, as is a human right determined by the UN, which is that all peoples, that colonized peoples, have the right to self-determination. So that's a very important point to me. And the interesting thing is that, like many people my age and like many other people, is that growing up, we believed that the United States, we believed that the West was superior to the indigenous culture, to the native inhabitants here. We believe that without the US, Guam would be nothing. We believe that without that, English was superior than the CHamoru language. It's that very colonial mindset that was over time, taught in the schools and the prevailing attitudes that occurred. And so, thanks to education, thanks to more readings and more conversations with fellow like-minded people, I was able to have a awakening stage, an awakening of consciousness. So to focus now on my indigenous CHamoru identity rather than trying to be like a Westerner, trying to be like an American, and so on. So that is a brief history of the CHamoru language. Right now, it's still not looking good. It's still not looking good, but there is efforts right now to revitalize it, and it goes hand in hand with the CHamoru Renaissance and nationalist movement in Guam.
That's interesting. So we can skip that in for a while. So I was watching the video clip. So by the way, Edward has a great YouTube channel called PulanSpeaks. As interesting because in Malay the word for moon is bulan. I'm assuming that's the same word. Bulan means moon, right? Yeah, bulan. And in the Philippines, a lot of language is buwan. So that's pretty much the same root. Yeah, so the moon. And I noticed that there was a clip where you actually went around speaking in CHamoru with younger people who probably who had no idea what you were saying, and also that I think a lot of people in the Philippines, in Malaysia, Indonesia would be quite shocked to know this. But yeah, so there are places where native languages are sort of being replaced by English. In your case, it's English. Hawaii had something similar going on for a while, and to a lesser extent, I mean, even New Zealand. Yeah, but that's sort of reviving now. So I guess in your group and your efforts to I guess the eventual plan would be to lead to sort of revitalization and I guess and reinstating the CHamoru language and making again one the main language of Guam. I guess that would be your goals.
Correct.
Okay, that's interesting. Wow, okay. The Japanese say "gambatte," so like all the best for you. That's a great endeavor. And could you tell us a bit more about the language and maybe little interesting features? I noticed there's a lot of like Spanish vocabulary that you guys use as well. Could you tell us a bit more about that? So that probably linked to the history. You could tell us about it.
Yes, of course, absolutely. That's a great question, Brian. And so, one thing about the CHamoru language is that it incorporates a unusually large amounts of loanwords, particularly from Spanish. And the reason why that is that the Marianas and Guam was the first ever islands to be colonized in the Pacific, and that was by the Spanish in around 1668 to 1672. So when the Spanish came here, they conquered the CHamoru people, they conquered the islands, and they established their colony here in the Marianas as part of the galleon trade along with the Philippines. And so over time, the Spanish words became loan words, became borrowed in the CHamoru language. So there's many Spanish loan words in CHamoru. For example, the word for family is familia. The word for God is Zeus, which comes from the Spanish word Dios, for God. And there's more words such as careta, and that's actually and there's other words such as, well, there's so many words, like rai is king, and again that comes from Spanish. Taza, cup, again from Spanish. And so there's many Spanish words in the CHamoru language. But one thing I just want to make clear is that just because there's many Spanish vocabulary, doesn't mean that the CHamoru language is all of a sudden a Spanish language or a Spanish-based Creole. Let me just make that clear. There's all these linguistic components. And one thing about the CHamoru language is that it's clearly a Austronesian language. Linguists have already said that, for example, like Sandra Chung, like Donald Topping, among other linguists, said that CHamoru is a Austronesian language. And so features in the CHamoru language that are similar with other Austronesian languages is that there's a lot of agglutination, which deals with adding in infixes and affixes, such as if you want to do a reciprocal marker Like the word for love in Samoru is guaidza. So if you want to say love each other, we're loving each other, you say at guaidza. You add the affix to it to make it reciprocal, to do at guaidza, love each other. And again, I don't really know too much about the grammar and the syntax of other Austronesian languages to say, how unique the Chamorro language is with the other Austronesian languages. Although I recently did an interview with Dr. Sandra Chung, a trained linguist, and I asked her that very question, how is Chamorro unique from other languages? And I will post that video in about a week where she does discuss that.
Oh, wow. Okay. Good.
So I guess, do you want me to go through like the syntax, the grammar, or do you have any other questions in mind about the Chamorro language?
Okay, so we just for the audience, because a lot of them will be listening, will be watching this from places like Indonesia and the Philippines. I just want to highlight that how the languages can be very, very similar. Like, can you count from 1 to 10 in Chamorro?
Oh yeah, yes, of course.
Yeah, and I know that there's also a Spanish version and there's an ancient, the older version as well. Could you?
So just for the the indigenous, the other viewers. So the thing, so Brian is absolutely correct for the counting about the Chamorro language. The indigenous way, or the old way, is basically dead. No one, and I mean barely, no one uses that anymore. It's been entirely replaced by the Spanish counting system, the uno, dos, tres, cuatro, and so on. But we do still have recorded the counting system of the Chamorro language, and again, and here is the counting system from 0 to 9. I'll say we got Tadza, we got Hatsa, Hugua, Tulu, Fåtfat, Lima, Gunom, Fiti, Guålo, Sigua, and Månot. So that's from 0 to 10, and I guarantee you 99.99% of Chamorros don't know that, because it's been completely replaced.
One of the words that people would recognize instantly is word for 5 with lima. That's the same, like across all the way to Madagascar, all the way to Hawaii. Is like pretty much the same well, minor differences, but it's the same word. Pretty much.
Absolutely, you're correct.
So go on. Yeah. So you were saying.
Oh no, that I guess that's all I have to say, is that there's many similarities, and again, that's due to the universal grammar and cognates that we see throughout all the Austronesian languages throughout Oceania and the insular Southeast Asia region.
Yeah, interesting. And do you know roughly when Guam was like settled by the ancient Chamorro people, the ancestors, like your ancestors?
Yes.
When? You tell us a bit.
Yes, so Guam and the Marianas, it was settled around 1500 BCE.
Oh wow!
So that's about 3,500 years ago. It was settled after the Philippines was settled from Taiwan or Formosa, or the Southeast China area, by the Austronesian people, and the Marianas, which includes Guam, is the earliest settlements in remote Oceania, which is about 2,000 kilometers away from the Philippines. So 3,500 years ago, people managed to sail from the Philippines to the Marianas, 2,000 kilometers distance, 3,500 years ago.
Yeah, without the GPS, without compass. Amazing. That was amazing. Yeah, your ancestors were amazing.
Crazy.
Yeah, all the way. Exactly. And let me see what I was going to say. There's one more thing, which is the word what's the word for man? Can you say the word for like an adult man in Chamorro?
Yeah, so for adult, so we just got the generic Taotao, then we got Låhi for man.
Okay, so in Philippine language is tao, like a human being, and in Tagalog is lalaki for man. In my Malay, lalaki.
Lalaki.
or
Oh, wow.
lucky. It's the same. That's the same word. The word for
Forgot.
woman is a bit different. I can't remember, but yeah. Anyway, yeah.
Yeah, but Palawan.
Palau. No, we
Or
don't say that. We don't say that. Not that I know of. Maybe in some of the Philippine languages, there might be some similar. Might be something similar.
oh, but that's close to Lalåhi for
Yeah.
men, then just Låhi, then there's Taotao. So yeah, so
A
as
lot of
excellently as you point out, Brian, there's lots
similarities.
of cognates and
Yeah.
similarities.
Yeah, the lot of similarities. And the other word I remembered very, very clearly was what's the word for land? Like earth, land. It starts with a T, I think. Like the earth. I can't remember. But yeah. Like we say tanah in Malay, tanah. Like land or earth or soil, something like that.
Tanu.
Tanu. Okay, yeah, that's tanah. And I think in Madagascar they say tan. I think it's tani or tana. I have to check with my Madagascan friends. Yeah.
You know a lot of words.
Well, part of my job as well. Yeah. So yeah, different languages and all. But yeah, it's interesting. So comparisons and also a lot of these words are very stable. I mean, you're talking about like thousands of years of history that's separating, all the different peoples in throughout Southeast Asia and all the way to the Pacific. Yeah. So it's very, very interesting. Wow. Thank you for that. Okay, great. The other thing I'd like to ask is, what are the I guess, is the government getting involved in revitalization and all that? Can you tell us a bit more about what's happening, or is it more of a like a private endeavor, or is it what's the status now? Yeah.
That's a great question about if there's any governmental action. So here's the interesting thing. So Guam is a very multi-ethnic place right now, where CHamoru's are 37% of the population, and Filipinos are actually the second highest minority, and they make up around 27% of the population. And so right there we see that CHamoru's are the minority in their own homeland. And so the government, they need to be very, very careful to not impose too much without upsetting, the current status quo, the current multicultural environment. But there has been governmental actions towards revitalizing the CHamoru language, where the CHamoru language alongside English are the only two official languages of Guam, at least as of now. And the government of Guam has also passed laws which legislated CHamoru cultural classes in the public schools, and those are required by every student to take. So there is that, where there's Chamorro teachers who teach the language and teach other CHamoru cultural things within the school system. So there is that too. And there is the CHamoru Language Commission, which is an official government's a body or agency which deals directly with standardizing and encouraging the use of the language. And so the government of Guam funds that. So there is lots of tax dollars going into funding the CHamoru language, and it does receive heavy support from the government. But in terms of the needed support to revitalize it to the level that we need it to be, I would say no, not even close. It's nowhere near the Kiwi or the Maori people in Aotearoa, New Zealand are doing. It's nowhere near in Hawaii with the Native Hawaiians.
Okay, wow, all right. That's don't know whether that to be happy or to be sad. You know what I mean? Okay, so there is like government aid and all that, but it's okay, I understand. Wow, okay. And it's interesting that a lot of people don't know this, that Chamorros are actually a minority in their own, have become a minority in their own on Guam. What about the Marianas or the other areas, Saipan and all that? Is there a bigger, more vibrant like Chamorro speaking community, or what's it like? Yeah, the other.
That's a great question, and so there is this perception, this strong perception, especially amongst many Chamorros here in Guam, that the language and the culture, is more alive in the northern Mariana Islands, in Saipan, Tinian, rota, or some people call it luta instead. And that is true to an extent, where there are definitely more CHamoru speakers in those northern Mariana Islands. Definitely, absolutely, you'll get that, if you do a t-test, a statistical test, you'll get that p-value if you do a sample, with less than 0.05. And so, but the thing is that they are facing the same issues that Guam are facing. It's just that they lagged behind due to them being colonized by the United States at a later time, because they were under Japanese control, and so on. And their development happened later on, in the 60s, rather than Guam, which happened, after the war. So due to these different social historical factors, the language shift is happening in the northern Mariana Islands, in Saipan, Tinian, Rota, but it's happening at a much slower rate, but it is happening nevertheless.
All right, that's also very interesting. Yeah, I'm probably gonna put a map on the description below, or a link to a few maps, so people have an idea of where we're talking about, all these very interesting places that a lot of people don't. In my part of the world, in Malaysia, Indonesia, the Philippines, and Singapore, we don't think much about Micronesia in general, about the Marianas. Yeah, but it's an interesting place. The Mariana Trench has always been something. Yeah, because I used to do scuba diving a lot. So wow, okay, it's right. It's in your neck of the woods.
Did you scuba dive at Chuklagu?
No, I haven't. I've been scuba dive outside of like Southeast Asia, like Malaysia, Indonesia. I haven't gone beyond that. So, but yeah,
gotcha.
One day, one day. Yeah, it must be beautiful there. Okay, and what about CHamoru food? Can you tell us some of the traditional stuff that you eat, or like traditional?
Yeah,
stuff?
Sure thing. So
very popular question. Sorry. Yeah, very popular.
No, you're good. No, you're good. You're good. Yeah, don't worry. You could edit out anything or whatever you want or need to. Yeah. So CHamoru food. So we got food. So the traditional CHamoru food, which of course there's the influences from the colonizers and the other places. That includes, one is that you will always see is Hineksa rice. That is a very traditional food. Rice, especially red rice.
Okay.
From the achoti, and that which was brought in by the Spanish to dye the rice red. Yeah. And then there's Kelaguen, which is a chemically cooked raw fish, where you chemically cook it through adding lemon to it. That's a staple. Then there's taro, there's breadfruit, there's sweet potatoes.
Okay.
And those make up a basic the starches too. And then there's other CHamoru foods include what I already said, Kelaguen, of course, fish like parrotfish.
Yeah.
Fish in the then there's pelagic fish, and let's see what else, what other good CHamoru food is. But there's also a lot of incorporation of Western food, of course, like
yes,
like McDonald's.
yeah, everywhere. Yeah, even here. Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool.
So
interesting.
So the traditional foods are breadfruits, taro, and all of that, along with a mix of Western food that comprises much of the CHamoru food.
Interesting. Okay, wow. And what other things I'm going to ask is one last question. I think that might be. So, do you think like with young children, are young people still interested in CHamoru culture in general, language in general, or are they becoming Westernized or Americanized in your case? What's your opinion? And so it's a bit.
That's a very complex question.
I know. That's why the last one. Yeah, the last one.
Very complex.
I know.
I'll make my answer short because I could write a thesis about this.
Oh, wow.
So the thing about, I would say that we have a CHamoru nationalist cultural resurgence that's been happening. So while before, during the 70s, 60s, 50s, CHamoru's wanted to be very like American, very like the Westerners. Now we're seeing a shift where where CHamoru's are saying, wait a minute, we are our own people. We don't exactly want to be like them anymore. We're our own people. So there's definitely a revitalization and a renewed interest towards the CHamoru culture and towards the CHamoru language. Definitely, I would say today a strong revitalization.
Okay. Yeah, I think that's about it. Even anything else to add? Interesting.
Oh, I'll just say thank you,
Oh, okay.
Dunklu Seduce Masi, Brian, for having me on your show. I hope
Oh,
your
thank you.
viewers learned something. I'm sorry if I spoke too much or
No,
said
no,
too
it's
many
fine.
words or something like that.
No, it's fine. It's fine. Thank you so much. So, okay, I have to learn how to spell that. What, Sizuus? Maase. Okay. Yeah, I think I copied and pasted it when I sent you a message, like from somewhere. Anyway, yeah. Okay, I'll put some of these interesting phrases in the descriptions, and yeah. So thank you very much. Thank you, Edward. And feel free to check out Edward's channel, PulanSpeaks. I'm going to put the links in the descriptions below and the stuff we talked about. All right, and thank you so much, and have a good evening. And we say in Malaysia, terima kasih, in Indonesia as well. So it means like to accept affection.
Oh wow.
That's how we say, yeah, to affect actually to accept love. May you accept love. So terima kasih. Yeah, that's how we say it.
Wow, Seduce Masi. And
Just
as we
mase.
say here, Puengi Siduus, which is literally which is the night, and Zeus means God. So it's
Ah,
God's night, which is
okay.
which is saying good night to you, but
Mhm.
it's literally means God's night because due to the influence of Catholicism and the
Okay.
Spanish.
Hmm.
So Puengi Siduus to you.
Okay, and Bongisi was to you as well. Cool. All right. Thank you so much.